The savage bloodbath at Outpost Delta 5 taught the aliens to never provoke humans, a lesson the galaxy would never forget. Admiral Gray showed Commander Lucas Pierce the gut-wrenching footage of the Tharkrians' vicious surprise attack, slaughtering troops and civilians alike without mercy. Lucas's own brother, a young doctor, made a desperate last stand to shield his patients before the aliens cut him down. Now, with Lucas commanding the mighty Terran battleship Defiant, humanity mobilized its apocalyptic vengeance. The Tharkrians had no idea of the nightmare they were about to face for daring to provoke the human race. The Defiant burst out of hyperspace, above the icy moon Tharkrian Prime, a steel fortress ready for war. Lethal destroyers glided in the blackness, hunting on patrol. Lieutenant Connor's narrow eyes darted between screens, plotting attack vectors with calm focus. "Admiral, I suggest we launch EMP drones along that fracture." He pointed at a jagged line on the moon's surface. "It'll hide the launch, and we could blind their defenses." Lucas clenched his jaw, heart pounding with the rhythm of war. "Do it," he ordered, his voice iron-strong. Silent as a ghost, the Defiant moved into the moon's broken ice and stone. From her belly, a swarm of EMP drones slipped free, silent birds weaving through the moon's shadowed cracks. On the command ship, Commander Thoger stood tall, scales glistening with authority. He watched the screens, awaiting the human's mistake. But instead of a mistake, darkness came. One by one, his screens blinked out, the kiss of EMP spreading like a virus. Confusion boiled within the Tharkrian ranks, shouts filled the air, and orders snapped out but could not halt the paralysis gripping their defenses. Now was the moment. Lucas signaled the attack with a throaty growl, "Fire." The Defiant unleashed hell, cannons spitting death below her armor. Bright destruction speared into the artillery, blooming explosions that chained from station to station. In the silence, Pierce watched the broken moon grow quiet, its guns mute, but the war was far from over. The UTV ships descended like vengeful stars, engines burning for the enemy's heart, carrying humanity's rage. Lucas knew the blood and battle ahead, but there was no turning back. The Tharkrians had struck first, but humanity would strike last. Dust choked the air as Lucas's boots hit the ground hard. The Defiant's shadow passed over the rubble and wreckage of the Tharkrian moon base. He swept his energy rifle side to side, laser cutting through the haze. Soldiers fanned out, hunting. A flash of green on a scaled limb caught Lucas's eye. He squeezed the trigger, the bolt sizzled, and the Tharkrian collapsed, scales smoking. Crouched by broken metal, Layla Martinez rapidly wired scraps into explosives, her fingers flying as she created traps. She glanced up at Lucas and gave a thin smile, grimly turning destruction to defense. "Good work," Martinez. Lucas's voice cut through the din. "Keep them coming." "Yes, Commander." She called back, setting another deadly surprise. The Defiant rained fire down as thuds of impact punctuated shouts and screams. The Tharkrian shots mostly glanced off armor, some finding flesh. Each human hit drove the team's anger and fury. The Tharkrians regrouped, adapting, but not quickly enough. They charged with brandished weapons only to be blown apart by Martinez's traps. Bodies and shattered cries were thrown by the explosions. Pierce advanced, stepping over smoldering wreckage. "Control, this is Pierce." "Bring the rain," he said into his comm. High above, the gunships answered, carving up structures with surgical strikes. The moon-based defenses crumbled under the barrage. Thoger watched the human swarm dismantle his base on the holoscreens. Fear and fury gripped him as he slammed the panic release. The chamber hissed as the dark shape within began to move. The Kriak emerged, its snarl shaking the air, massive and built to slaughter. It bounded towards the battle. At the sight, the Tharkrian soldiers rallied, hope flickering in their eyes. But Lucas's gaze hardened as he reloaded, the beast only strengthening his resolve. "Bring it on," he whispered. The fight raged on. Human determination against alien desperation. Under the cold stars, the Defiant cast a long shadow over the broken ground as UTV soldiers marched toward the enemy HQ. Boots crunched on gravel, dust clouds rose with each step, and the air tasted like metal and fear. Commander Lucas Pierce led the march, his rifle hugged tight to his shoulder, his squad close behind. In the gray wasteland, the ground shuddered. It shook again, a warning in their bones. Before orders came, the ground exploded. The Kriak erupted from below, towering with limbs thick as trees and a mouth full of sharp teeth. It roared, the sound crushing the air, silencing the guns and gripping hearts with raw terror. In the gray wasteland, the ground shuddered. It shook again, a warning in their bones. Before orders came, the ground exploded. The Kriak erupted from below, towering with limbs thick as trees and a mouth full of sharp teeth. It roared, the sound crushing the air, silencing the guns, and gripping hearts with raw terror. Martinez hit the ground, back to a shattered wall. Bullets sparked off the Kriak's scales, missiles exploded on its skin. The beast moved freely, swiping aside debris and soldiers. Martinez breathed fast and sharp, her hands shaking as she reloaded, each shot desperate and useless. Lucas saw the beast shrug off missiles, dread spreading through his gut. All units, pierce here. Focus fire on that thing. All support, hit it now. He barked into the comm. Missiles rained down, the Kriak stood firm, its skin mocking their efforts. Doctor. Alan Kim stood out amid twisted metal and trapped cries. The man used to microscopes now raced through the war. A vial clutched in his hand. Pierce, he yelled. I've got something, a toxin that could take it down. Eyes on the Kriak, Lucas nodded, his heart hammering hard. Cover him, he ordered. A squad shifted fire, drawing the beast's rage. Gunfire bought Kim seconds. Lucas watched Kim dive under the beast, dodging falling debris in jaws with desperate precision. Kim stabbed the vial into exposed nerves. The Kriak wailed, its pain echoing off ruins. The sound curdled blood. The monster thrashed erratically as the toxin spread. With one last cry, it collapsed, the ground shaking with its weight. From the war room, Thoger saw his trump card fall. Monitors flickered, the once unbreakable beast now a corpse. His hands clenched to fists, scales clacked in frustration. The truth hit him like a punch. Humans were not docile creatures. They would not be provoked, a lesson learned too late. Lucas Pierce led his squad down the smoke-filled corridor. Burnt wires and metal floor scraped their boots. Glowing alien weapons flashed around the corner. Connor moved up front, a stolen disruptor in hand. He nodded at Lucas, his blast shorting out the alien weapons and sparks. The squad took out the troops with quick shots. Lucas pressed forward, his team following, forged by battle. Each loss drove their advance, intensity in their blood. The doors burst open under their fire. Thoger stood inside, guards around him. Surrender, Thoger. Lucas's voice boomed. End this, no human commands the Tharkrians. Thoger roared back. Chaos erupted, blasts and metal clashed in the tight space. Lucas ducked a swipe, rolled and fired back. Another guard replaced the fallen. One by one, the guards dropped until only Thoger remained, his suit humming with power in the cramped room. He charged, too slow. Lucas aimed at the joints. Thoger fell, realizing his defeat. His weapon fell as he gasped. I yield. Lucas nodded, signaling his team. Secure him. Medical for all, word spread of the surrender. Tharkrian forces stopped, morale agonized. The war ended. Lucas felt grim satisfaction of duty done, not joy. Thoger dragged his chains as he walked into the dim room. Unmoving guards stood on both sides, avoiding his eyes but staring non-stop. Thoger was their captive now, but the humans didn't gloat or cheer their victory. Outside, Lucas Pierce stood on the torn battleground where Tharkrian and human blood had soaked into the dirt. He carried no guns, just a datapad and water. Dust hung in the air, reminding everyone of the recent fighting. Lucas looked around at the devastation, then went to talk with the new Tharkrian leaders who approached hesitantly. They were survivors now in charge, eyes uncertain but willing to hope for peace. They talked, voices sometimes rising over the noise of bots and vehicles bringing supplies. A translation drone hovered between them, making sure no words got mixed up. This wasn't about terms anymore, it was logistics, sharing resources, working together. With so many hurt and homeless, there was no time for fancy speeches. Lucas had set up a medical camp near the main road, now crowded with human medics and Tharkrian healers working side by side, stitching wounds, setting broken bones, comforting. He stopped to help lift a fallen beam off a young Tharkrian child. Seeing the kid's scared face, Lucas passed the child to a waiting medic, getting a tiny nod of thanks, a gesture going beyond words. News of these actions spread fast, faster than any ship could fly. The Tharkrians, who had expected extinction, now saw something different in the invaders, a desire not just to conquer, but to rebuild, to help. It confused some, reassured others. Lucas visited the monument site every day. The design was straightforward but grand, a pillar with alien and human names reaching upward. Alien and human builders leaned over plans, debating out of shared passion to honor the dead. Lucas watched a human stonemason carve a Tharkrian warrior's name next to a Terran soldier's. At the unveiling, the crowd was a mix of colors. Tharkrian children clung to parents as Lucas stepped forward. "Today we stand not as conquerors, but as allies," as friends his voice boomed. "This stone is for those lost, the cost of fear and misunderstanding. Let it also bridge us to a shared future." Tharkrians nodded, murmuring a word meaning both hope and new beginning. Lucas touched the monument, thinking of his brother and the others. Tension still crackled, but there was a shift, a cautious step towards something different. Lucas looked at the faces, human and alien, and saw this wasn't just a new chapter for the Tharkrians and humanity, but for the whole galaxy. Silence filled the Galactic Council chamber when the crackling transmission came through. Human voices announced a ceasefire with the Tharkrians. Some alien leaders shuffled uncomfortably, others leaned forward, checking devices to confirm IT. Ambassadors lined up at the Tharkrian Prime dock. Ships hummed, engines cooling as diplomats walked off carrying scrolls and pads. They moved through the crowded port, looking at the defiant among the ships. Lucas Pierce stood straight among the humans. Aliens circled, seeking deals or help. "We want a defense treaty." An insect ambassador clicked, holding out a claw. Lucas took the document, scanned it, and made notes. "Let's meet and discuss details," he said firmly. Talk swirled about tech trades, events, and research. One alien showed engine blueprints for faster travel, another had artifacts for a museum. In the command center, humans and Tharkrians worked together. The sharp scent of solder filled the air as they built stronger networks. Markets buzzed with new bonds. Aliens tried human food, grinning or grimacing. Humans wore alien tech that shimmered. Every deal and laugh tied closer bonds between old enemies. The Defiant patrolled overhead, reminding all of the line between peace and war. On the bridge, Lucas listened to steady reports. He met leaders planet-side. They pored over maps, planning routes. "This path could cut delivery times," a merchant said, tracing a glowing line. "Check it safe first," Lucas replied firmly. There were still grumbles of dissent, but no one denied the busy streets, joint efforts healing wounds. Lucas watched his people, ensuring readiness. He stood guard at the border of a new dawn. The sun fell below the skyline on Tharkrian Prime. The air chilled, and the first stars blinked awake. It was supposed to be quiet now, but peace was fragile, and Commander Pierce knew that well. He stood outside the main tent, the light from inside casting shadows on his face. "We got another one," Sergeant Miles said, walking up. His look said it all: another blast, another grainy video of shadows running into the new streets. Pierce checked the report: casualties 4 hurt, no dead. "Martinez stopped the second bomb," Miles said. The report joined a growing pile. Each told of similar attacks in the capital. The Tharkrian hardliners, calling themselves the Kreen Hive, hit the weak parts holding society together. Lucas's hands curled to fists. This wasn't the war he knew, with clear lines and enemies. This was shadows, and it needed a new strategy. "We've got to cut them off, root them out," Lucas said, mostly to himself. Miles nodded. "We've got H and Thar intel on it, but they always vanish." The next day, Pierce met with the Tharkrian commanders in the center. They gathered around the city map. Officers stood together, tension thick between the races. Trust was new and fragile. Pierce started the meeting. "The Kreen Hive uses the chaos, trying to drag us back to war. Back from all we've built." He looked at each face, human and alien. "We stopped them together." Talar, a senior Tharkrian commander, stepped forward. "We have locations, but when we arrive, they're gone." A map appeared over the table, marked in red. "We hit these spots at once," Lucas said. "Surround them. No escape." Talar clicked in agreement. "Our units will join, but the Kreen Hive does not fear death. They will fight to the end." The attack came that night. A cold wind blew as teams quietly moved into place. In a cramped vehicle, Lucas and Talar tracked it all. Teams checked in, whispered over comms. "Alpha in place, Delta team. Go then. Bravo under fire. Ambush on screen." Red dots flared as violence took Bravo. "Back up now," Pierce commanded, feeling control slip away. They battled into dawn. As light broke, Lucas walked the wreckage of the last Kreen Hive base. Just empty tunnels left, the enemy gone again. Outside, Lucas saw the tired coalition faces, human and Tharkrian alike, of victory, but at a cost, and a deeper fight ahead for the peace they all ached for. This war needed more than soldiers. As Lucas watched the sunrise, he knew the real battle was in every heart and mind on Tharkrian Prime, a fight for trust, for unity, For a future with humans and Tharkrians side by side, but Lucas signaled his squad through the ruined city. His rifle grip tightened. They moved like shadows, in sync. Talar flanked him, eyes scanning under his visor. A crumbling wall opened to a square. Lucas halted them, eyes searching. Too many hiding spots for enemies. Only Lucas's breath broke the silence. "Stay alert," he whispered. "Don't like this," a click answered in his ear, then roars. Soldiers swarmed from doors and windows, firing. A trap snapped shut. Contact. Voices yelled over comms. Pierce dove behind a fallen pillar, firing back, breathing hard, each shot meaning life. His team took positions, too many enemies overwhelmed. Talar roared a challenge, killing 2 before a net grabbed him. A bolt hit Lucas's arm, throwing him. His head cracked the ground, dots swam in his vision. Another bolt exploded by his face. The ozone stung his nose as he tried to get up. Weight crushed his back. Iron hands yanked his arms back, shackles locked his wrists. A hood slipped over his head, blinding him. Alien voices barked orders. The ground went smooth. Echoes said he was inside. The hood lifted. Lucas blinked at the harsh light. Sarak-Thar loomed over him, gleaming with power. His voice boomed with evil joy. "Commander Pierce," he rumbled. "My prize, my message. Your life is now my war token." Lucas's jaw clenched. "You won't win," he said firmly. Sarak-Thar left him with guards, silence worse than their stares. Lucas's eyes adjusted. Another was there, scales dull, eyes clouded with doubt. "An insurgent," Sarak-Thar's puppet to Lucas asked quietly. The insurgent clicked in disgust. "Sarak-Thar's path is ruin. Some of us see it, a plan formed in Lucas's mind. "Help me escape. I can help stop him," he said. Measured, potent words. Hours crawled. Whispers filled the cell, shadows. Guards murmured discontent. The door opened. The insurgent entered, key gleaming. "Now," he said. Shackles fell away. Lucas followed him through dim corridors. Each turned danger, each shadow death. But Lucas pressed on, survival burning inside. In the armory, Lucas's hands found a rifle, familiar and comforting. He checked the charge, nodding thanks. "Data," the insurgent whispered, pointing to a console. "Plans, evidence." Lucas's fingers flew across keys, screens flickered, codes cracked, information poured in, puzzles forming pictures. They moved fast and low again. The door ahead promised freedom, night slit visible. Alarms wailed, lights flashed red. Time ran out. "Go," the insurgent pushed Lucas forward. "Your fight is outside." Lucas burst into the open air, pursuit loud behind. He ran hard, heart racing. Explosions signaled the stronghold's anger. He crossed to the coalition line. Humans and Tharkrians together welcomed him. He carried more than hope now, the promise of bloodshed's end. Breathless, he told Talar the intelligence, bandaged from survival. Lucas's report spread like fire, lighting determination in soldiers' eyes. The dissent within the hive altered their campaign. Insurrection seeds fed the Tharkrian will to end this. Lucas's capture and escape marked a turning point. Unity hardened like steel, ready to forge peace. Lucas Pierce climbed a ridge overlooking the battle-darkened fields of Tharkrian dust. Stained the horizon. He scanned the landscape full of craters and ruins that whispered of war's cost. His radio crackled to life. "Commander, we're in position, waiting on your order." Lucas gripped the radio. "This ends today." On my signal, his words rang like steel. Boots firm, he looked at the soldiers, human and Tharkrian, united against the faction that refused peace. They readied weapons, energy coils glowing soft blue in the dying light. They had families, lives outside this, but now they were warriors. "Advance," Lucas's voice cut through the air. Boots churned the ground as they surged forward, driven by vengeance and determination. They clashed in shattered valleys between broken towers. Lasers seared the dusk, answered by cannon thunder. Grenades shook the earth, hurling bodies. Screams and shouts rose over the din. Lucas led from the front, a beacon. Time blurred, blood, sweat, battle's echoes. A shout rose above the noise. "Commander Sarak-Thar is here." Lucas saw his enemy emerge from a fallen tower, bristling with weapons, a giant among ruins. Lucas handed off his rifle, drew a combat knife. "Keep pushing. He's mine." The troops parted as Lucas approached Sarak-Thar. Hatred glinted in the Tharkrian's eyes, claws clenched. "I've waited for you," Human Serac Thar hissed with malice. So have I, Lucas replied. He stepped into the open space. They circled each other, calculating. Lucas darted in, knife flashing. Serac Thar roared, arms swinging in a bludgeon of force. Lucas dodged the blow, feeling its wind hot on his skin. Lucas moved fast, lithe. He dodged swipes, rolled under kicks, stabbed with the blade. It glanced off armor, leaving a scratch. You can't win, Serac Thar bellowed, lunging quick. It's not about winning. It's about ending this. Lucas growled, parrying and rolling clear. They collided again and again, two forces of nature unleashed. Lucas's mind raced, predicting movements. He blocked punches, stabbed armored joints where plates met. Serac Thar stumbled, surprise in his eyes. The knife cut deeper, hydraulic fluid dripping. We're done with your war, Lucas yelled, slashing again. Serac Thar staggered, armor failing. I am the Kreen Hive, Serac Thar growled. And I am humanity, Lucas shouted back. He lunged, final strike true. The Tharkreen fell, eyes empty. Around them, the tide turned. The Kreen Hive crumbled with their leader gone, captured or fleeing. They couldn't rally. It was over. Lucas didn't cheer. He looked at the dead, alien and human alike. He radiated a ceasefire. It's done. Secure prisoners, treat all wounded, he ordered. The command spread. Firing stopped. Soldiers, weary and hurt, embraced or sat, letting it sink in. They had won. Later, Lucas stood amid a broken city, reborn. Tharkreans and humans worked together, clearing rubble, aiding the injured. Community grew. Lucas's name echoed across the stars, a human who forged peace from war's fire, not a legend of destruction, but of hope. His story, told far and wide, proved one thing clearly: humanity's spirit could not be broken. They were protectors, allies, warriors, relentless, united. Lucas Pierce embodied them, their champion, their peacebringer.